right. All right, and a call to order a regular meeting of the Planning Commission. Phyllis, do you have roll call?
Chairperson Bob McCool.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Lisa Ritchie.
Here.
Commissioners Phyllis Harden here. David Harper. Here. Jerry Malia.
Here.
Ben Miller.
Here.
Jason Reese. Anthony Stewart. Steve Whitty.
Here.
Planner Stephen Williams.
Here.
Attorney Dan Harvey.
Here. Okay. Thank you. Now we have time for any public comment on non-agenda items. It's all you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. My name is Peter Ruprecht, and I live at 185 Mohawk Circle up in Sagamore. Last year, I was a volunteer for the Hodgson-Harris Reservoir Breeding Bird Survey, and I'd like to share some of the results of that with you this evening. As a bit of background, I'm sure you know Hodgson-Harris Reservoir is located up in the northeast part of Superior between 88th Street and Highway 36. Several years ago, the town helped to fund reconstruction of the dam at HHR. And as the reservoir refilled, wildlife began returning to it, and a number of town residents decided that it would be interesting to try and document the bird species that could be found there, especially birds that use the habitat during the breeding season in spring and summer. And during the spring and summer of 2017 and 2018, volunteers from town spent almost 500 hours monitoring bird species at the reservoir. You probably have gotten a copy of the report with all the gory details in it. I'm sure that was highly fascinating. But just as a really quick summary, I'll share with you that the results show that Hodgson-Harris is an outstanding and locally important wildlife resource. It provides a home to over 60 migrating and wintering bird species, in addition to the 60+ species that are potential nesters there in spring and summer. These include several species that are tracked by the Colorado Natural Heritage Program, including the snowy egrets that are shown on the cover here, fighting over an invasive bullfrog. So the more they can eat, the better. Speaking of frogs, I'll also mention that an amphibian species, the northern leopard frog, which is endangered in Colorado, is also found at Hodgson-Harris. So why is this relevant to the Planning Commission? Since the quality of the wildlife habitat depends on clean water and an undisturbed buffer area around the reservoir, any new development or construction that happens nearby should be carefully managed to minimize habitat impacts. So, first of all, regarding buffer zone, a lot of the bird species, water bird species in particular, nest right along the shoreline, and any new construction around the reservoir should ideally remain at least 100 meters back from the high water line. That distance recommendation is based on guidelines from several state wildlife agencies, and it's sort of scaled to the size of the reservoir, the type of shoreline that there is, and the type of bird species that use the shoreline. So in addition, any construction activities should not cause changes to the water level in order to avoid drowning or stranding nests that are right along the edge. Finally, human and pet access right along the shoreline should be avoided, in particular during spring and summer. Next, regarding water quality, since many nesting and foraging bird species obviously rely on plant and animal food species that live inside the water, any development or construction should scrupulously, very cautiously and carefully avoid runoff of pollutants or sediments into the reservoir. Amphibians in particular are highly sensitive to water quality issues. So that's a kind of a quick rundown, and I hope that in the future at any point, if you're called upon to evaluate a potential development in the area of the Hodgson-Harris Reservoir, that you would please take the needs of this important wildlife habitat into consideration. I don't know if you have any, do we have any questions or anything like that? Feel free to email me at any time if you want. If anyone is interested to take a visit out there, I'd be happy to show you around at any time as well.
I've got one question. Can we ask questions? Is human interaction restricted now around the reservoir? Can people walk their dogs and walk around it now, or are we restricted now?
So it's currently restricted on the north side. It's private land that's fenced.
Okay.
So there's a large undeveloped parcel to the north and also to the east where the dam is. And along the south side is the Saddlebrook condominium area.
Yep.
And so that's gated. So there's not a lot of human interaction along the shoreline there. In addition, the reservoir itself is owned by the county, and they have fenced around it as well.
They have, okay, very good, thank you.
And when you say 100 meters, is that from the water's edge? Is that?
From the high water mark.
From the
It
high water.
obviously fluctuates a little bit throughout the year.
Okay.
So that would be from high water.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, I'd just like to thank you for the time you and your colleagues put into documenting this and for sending us the report. I thought it was very interesting, and I knew hardly anything about it beforehand.
Well, thanks. That seems to be the case for a lot of people, including myself, that we know that the reservoir is there, but have no idea what a gem it really is.
Yeah, and thanks for spending all the time out there and monitoring it. I think that getting it documented for the record is really important as we're making decisions in the future. So thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Boulder County is actually monitored throughout the winter, but not during breeding season. So if you want additional data, you can look at their report, which is, I think, on the town website.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have the consent agenda. We have minutes from January 15th and January 22nd. There were some changes to January 15th that were addressed, and we should take a motion for each of those separately, I think. Anybody want to take a crack at a motion for approval of the minutes?
I've got one comment on the minutes before we.
You bet.
It's just a clarification on item 9 on our work plan. We say actively engage in regional planning with, number 10, create diversity in housing options, including attainable housing. I thought we used the words affordable housing versus attainable. And again, there might not be, attainable seems different than affordable to me.
Yeah, where was that? Because I do think we talked about affordable
It's
housing.
number 10 on the work plan. So it's almost at the bottom of the minutes on the
On the,
15th or 20. It's the first set of minutes. It's the one from the 15th. On the 15th, it's right at the close to the very bottom. Right before staff
meeting
announcements,
date
number
for,
10.
sorry, somehow I ended up with both of the 5th opened, sorry. Yeah, I thought we did talk about affordable housing. Do you have the document? Do you
I
want?
don't on me, but
No.
I can pull it up if
Okay.
you want. Is it in the minutes or is it?
It's in the minutes,
actual work
yeah.
plan?
It was,
Okay.
the word attainable was used.
I believe you guys mentioned both. That's my recollection.
Yeah.
So if you prefer one versus
Yeah,
the
but
other.
we're just putting both in, yeah. I would just say if you could
Attainable
just,
/ affordable.
yeah,
Okay.
attainable and or affordable housing would be great. If we could make that. Do you want to go ahead and make the motion with that?
Sure.
that
Motion to approve the January 15th minutes with the adjustment to item number 10 on the work plan to include affordable with attainable housing options.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
All right, we have a second. Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
I have to abstain. I was not at that meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And how about the next set of minutes? Can I get a motion on that? You here, Ben?
I have 3 more days. All right. I
That's
make
for
a
the-
motion to approve the January 22nd, 2019 minutes of the Superior Planning Commission.
Okay. I have a motion. Second. And all in favor?
Abstain.
I have
And
to
one
abstain as
abstention.
well.
And
5 of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and abstain?
One abstain. Commissioner Ritchie abstained.
And Malia.
Oh, and Malia. Okay.
And
cool.
Jerry
All
Malia.
right.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, so, okay, I'm going to open a public hearing to review and comment on a request for a lot line adjustment of Lot 3A and Tract B of Superior Town Center filing number 1B, replat number 3. And this, the town is the applicant on this, so Stephen, do you have a presentation or do we?
Excuse me.
or-
Excuse me, I have proof of publication.
Oh, I'm sorry, proof of publication. My bad. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I do have a presentation. Stephen Williams, town staff. As stated, this application involves a boundary line adjustment, an easement dedication, and an easement vacation, all of which are captured on the proposed replat shown here. Both the town and Glacier House Hotels, the owner of Lot 3A, the Element Hotel, are applicants on this proposal. The town owns Tract B, which is where Park 2 will be developed. The lot adjustment is requested to transfer 3,115 square feet from Lot 3A to Tract B. The lot adjustment proposes in the southeastern boundary of Lot 3A, where it abuts Tract B. The area is just northeast of Marshall Road and north of Coal Creek. This excerpt from the current plat kind of better reflects the proposed lots or the lots that are involved in this application. Lot 3A is shown in red. The town's Park 2 parcel is shown in green. The darkened area here generally reflects the area that's being transferred from Lot 3A to Tract B. And then this illustration was included with the narrative for the application, and it includes all the application components. So the current lot line is highlighted in yellow. The proposed lot line is highlighted in red, so that's the adjustment. And then the area here was planned with the FDP for the Element Hotel for a detention area, and it was originally just designed to accommodate detention from the hotel. Changes into to kind of the surrounding area, mostly along Marshall Road, have required broader detention needs, and so the town approached Glacier Hotels about enlarging the detention area in this area in order to accommodate these regional needs, and then rather than building a second pond in the vicinity. So Glacier agreed, but their preference was to not own the land that takes water on from outside their property. So they've agreed to dedicate the land to the town instead. So in order to do so, they've also granted us this access easement. So that's the easement that's being dedicated. So we would use what's already a public access easement to go from Marshall to this area. And then we have what I believe is an 18-foot wide access easement to get into this detention area so we can maintain it in the future without having to maintain it off of Marshall Road or need another access cut. And then the other piece of that is this vacation. So previously when this was all the Element Hotel, the detention pond was here. They needed an outfall across our Tract B in order to flow that water into Coal Creek, which is shown in the dashed line here. That's no longer necessary since all of this is on the town property. So we're vacating one easement, dedicating another, and then this slight boundary line adjustment in order to change the line so all of the new detention area is on Tract B. So staff's recommending of this replat as proposed. No conditions have been applied. Staff's memo also outlined all the various criteria that are involved. That's probably more complicated process-wise than the actual application is, but I'm happy to go through all that with you. The real context here that I wanted to clarify was the planning or the town board's meeting recently changed made a change so that when we have an easement vacation, we don't have to go back to planning commission. So out of all the three processes that are involved here, a lot line adjustment, a vacation, and an easement dedication, only one would have come to you guys, and that was that vacation. So in the future, the lot line adjustment can be done administratively, and the easement vacation and dedication can just be heard by the town board, and typically that would be on consent agenda. But as this application was in process, as we were going through with that, we wanted to take it forward under, and I don't think that actually becomes valid for like when they make a code change for 30 days or whatever the time frame is. So we also wanted to just, this is kind of the last one of this variety that you'll see, so try to appreciate it. But if you have any questions about any of it, I'm happy to answer it. So
I'm assuming this actually probably improves Tract B in the park and as far as development.
I mean, it doesn't have much of an impact. So I did reach back out to Matrix to see, to confirm. The pond is enlarging a little bit, and there is a change to because of there's some grading changes. So what Ian explained was that there was nothing really ever planned for this area in this corner, so the impacts are very minimal. Ian Anderson from Matrix, and that there was, I think we had a really, what he explained is we had this arched sidewalk connection connecting Marshall Road down to the creek, kind of more in, around where the outfall was, and now that's going to be a tighter connection because of the grade changes. But you're still going to have your sidewalk connection that'll get you down from Marshall Road to the Cold Creek Trail in that location. So,
Okay.
Minimal impact.
I don't really have a question on the application, but I do have a question just on timeline on the work over there and when the trail will be back open and.
That would have been a great thing to look into. I honestly don't.
It's okay.
Have a schedule on that, and I don't know that you do either. Do you?
Nope. Okay.
Doesn't look anywhere close.
Just curious. Yeah.
At this point. All right.
I've got a question for you, Stephen. The hotel folks, they also own Lot 3B, I believe.
No, RC Superior still owns.
RC
They had
Superior.
what
Okay.
you're probably remembering is they had a first right of purchase, I believe, on that lot.
that's what
And
I
I
was
don't
thinking,
know
yeah.
when that expired or if it's expired or what the situation is.
Whatever may get built on Lot 3B,
Uh-huh.
would they need a retention pond? And would they use the one that's being created that we're discussing? And is that existing pond that we're discussing large enough?
The existing pond, I understand, had been built for current needs, and I believe there's capacity, or, it would probably be accommodated on their property. But I don't
Lot
know.
3B?
On Lot 3B, their own detention area.
Okay.
You are more than welcome to.
So there's a.
Can you come to the
drainage
mic?
easement already. If you can zoom in, Stephen.
Can we just get your name on
Sorry,
it?
yes, Jim Brostovich, Civil Resources.
I'm going back, sorry.
Yeah, I was just concerned, since we're moving this around and making this detention pond, if they build something on 3B, would they need to make this retention pond
There's
larger?
no pointer, but I'll point. This here is a drainage easement. So
Okay.
This pond for this lot 3B, maybe partially on lot 3B and maybe partially in this drainage easement. That was always planned like that, back to the PD.
Okay. And the drainage easement is owned by RC Superior or the town?
It's on the town's property in the park, but it is benefiting that lot.
That lot.
Whoever owns it, whoever develops it.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Any public comment on this agenda item? All right. Okay to close the hearing? Everybody good? All right, we'll close the hearing. Any discussion? Entertain a motion? Everybody ready? You have it up? I do, I can have it right up here in a minute, yeah.
I will move to approve Planning Commission Resolution Number PC-2, Series 2019, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the Town of Superior recommending approval of a lot line adjustment replat Lot 3A, Block 1 and Tract B, Park 2, Superior Town Center, case number FP 2019-1.
All right, I have a motion. Commissioner Ritchie, do you have a second?
A second.
All right, Commissioner Malley, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. All right. Thank you. That brings us to staff announcements, work plan update, and Northwest Superior update. Thanks, Jim.
So just to, I guess, the first thing I'd update is that we have a dinner next week at 5:30 with the town board in order to discuss primarily the Northwest planning project. So Clarion will be here. It's at 5:30 and we'll go till just before 7. I think that there's one interview for the CAPS committee also scheduled. So I think we're gonna have to end closer to 5 or 6:45 in order for that interview to take place. And then the thought process is that the work plan will not be considered by the board yet. So we'll get our feedback. And then I think that, with certain recent decisions on Wildona and stuff like that, there may be some changes that we need to make to the work plan before we present it to them. So because we don't have a hearing or an action item to take forward to you guys on, what is it, the 19th? we could schedule, so we have the flexibility to respond after next week's meeting with the town board. If you guys wanted to have a work session to discuss the work plan or to, follow up on the Northwest Area Plan, a week from then, or we could schedule it for March 5th too. So however you want to do it, we can just kind of see how that meeting next week goes and what direction you get. And then I think the idea is that there's probably going to be a few changes that you may want to make to the work plan before it goes to the board for consideration. So, but those are the two updates. If you guys want to pull it up and look at it in any more detail, we can do that too. That's why they're on there. So
Anybody
it's
want
more
to see
of
it,
a
or we good?
process or sequencing thing.
What kind of changes to the work plan were you contemplating?
I'm not contemplating anything,
Just,
other than
yeah.
that I think Will Donut was on there as an action item, and I think that the feedback that I've heard from the manager's office is that we probably want a more focused plan that's probably not quite as broad, and that really is probably just going to be dependent upon what your direction is. Like if we're going to be working on an overlay district, that may take up a certain amount of time, and if whatever we're going to work on with the marketplace, if there's direction on that. So
what about it's too broad? What was the?
I just think that they feel like I don't know, that it's pretty broad in terms of scope of things that you guys wanted to cover, from transportation to stuff like that. So I haven't had a lot of conversation yet about it, other than that was generally what I heard the feedback was. So I understood Martin had some conversation with you already about it, but
Not so much about it, a little bit, not
A little
much.
bit, but not much,
Mostly
okay.
about Northwest Superior. That's what we've been
okay.
talking about, but, okay.
Either date's fine with me if you want. I don't know if we want to calendar it, or if we just want to see how the dinner goes next week, and then decide. Either one's
however,
fine
yeah.
with me.
And if we're moving forward with an overlay district, if that gets approved, and we'll have to coordinate with, if we're going to bid that out, or
I did have a
roll
question
over with
related to
Clarion or
that.
something, so.
Wondering if we could recommend to the board, or if we should even consider a moratorium on building permits, now that if the board after next week, kind of gives us indication that they're open to an overlay district, if a moratorium.
And I'm glad you brought that up, but can we maybe wrap up the work plan schedule here, and then let's
Sure.
hit that?
Yeah.
And then, so do we want to, so if we get feedback on the 11th, we're meeting on the 19th?
It's up to you. We can.
We don't have
if
anything
you
on
want
the
it. There's
agenda
nothing, so it's flexible.
currently.
It's just not we don't need a 14-day notice for that.
Do we have an agenda item on the 5th of March?
Currently, no.
No.
And I don't think it'll
No.
happen based on.
Either one's fine.
Or, I guess, well, seems like we're going to need to have some conversation about why we think it's too broad, and whether we want to push for that or focus it in. So do we want to do that on the 19th? Is that okay with everybody? Try to
Regarding the
quick
work
one.
plan?
Yeah.
I could go both ways. As I'm thinking a little bit, I'm also wondering from a staff and consultant perspective, if a week is enough time to maybe take some feedback they heard from the board.
We
Do you
can
feel
make
like
the
you're gonna
decision-
need
We can
time?
make the decision after
Yeah.
you can tell me, you can
Okay.
direct me after.
Yeah.
the
And
meeting
that would
next
be a
week.
work session only, so if we wanted to start it early, we could, right? So we've talked about doing work sessions at 6 or 6, like at 6 o'clock instead of 7, so.
That's true.
So we could do that as well, if there's nothing else in the agenda on the 19th, yeah.
Can it be a work session, or does it have to be an action item? So it would have to be.
It'll have to be a public meeting, because we're going to have to take a vote if you're recommending the work plan
Okay.
be adopted. But
All right.
it's just semantics in terms of how we publicize it. Because we don't have an agenda item, it doesn't have to be, we don't have to publicize it, 14 days in advance. So,
Okay.
we have that latitude to publish it even after our meeting with the board next week.
Okay,
So-
then should we keep it at 7 then, if we're going to do it? Or can it still be a little bit earlier?
You could do it either time, and I think you can make your decision after next week's meeting.
Okay.
That's what so.
All right, why don't we tentatively just kind of pencil it in so you know it's there?
Okay.
All right,
I'll send an email out just so that the two that aren't here are aware that we will likely be meeting on the 19th.
okay. Would you mind emailing a copy of our current plan?
Sure.
To all of us? Oh, were yeah.
kind of tacked it
Yeah,
on,
you got
88th
tacked on
Street
last
improvements in Wildona if it resurfaces, but it looks like that
It
is
it
done
resurfaced and.
quickly and went away.
Went away again.
Which is,
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's good.
Definitively
Yeah,
resolved.
it was, yeah, yeah. And did you have anything on the Northwest Superior?
No, just that we're having no update other than we're meeting for next week to discuss it, just as more of a reminder, yeah.
And our plan for that is I'll just kind of do a recap for the new board members and then invite any of you guys if you want to tack on anything or have anything to say if you're hopefully at the meeting. Is everybody planning to be there? Okay.
5:30.
5:30.
And dinner
Is
served.
Clarion going to be there?
Oh, yeah. And then, so I'll introduce Clarion, they'll do their presentation, and then at the end, I'll probably get up and make our recommendation as we described it in our last meeting to do the overlay district and then to request planning commission work plan approval and staff direction for continuing to work with Brixmor and CDOT and all other interested parties.
The board's packet is on the website, so you can go to the website and look at
Yep.
what is included, what the items that have been included in the packet.
Yep. All right, any questions? Anything else? All right. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, you want to bring, yeah.
I
you
was
can
just
bring that
curious
back up.
if there was any appetite, I think, to bring forth a recommendation for the board to maybe consider a moratorium if we get positive feedback relative to an overlay district. If that's something, and I guess I'm looking at the attorney as well.
Yeah, I know, I'm trying to think of how kind of a recommendation could be made specifically. I guess that's something I'd have to kind of take a look through the code to see what kind of logistically and procedurally how that would be done.
And I guess I'm maybe not considering like a formal recommendation, but just as we're discussing, it just
Yeah.
seems, or before we even mention it to the board as a planning commission, do we feel like that's something that might be worth considering?
Yeah, I mean, potentially that could be something that you discuss at your meeting. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I assume.
But from a legal perspective, are there things that,
Yeah, I mean, there's certain showings that you have to make, in ordinance for a moratorium that would have to be met, but, yeah, I mean, in terms of kind of how it would formally be done from the planning commission, I'd have to kind of look into that, but, yeah. All right.
I assume you're just a certain part of town, or does that make it even more legally difficult?
I was just wondering about could we restrict, the issuing of building permits is what,
Right.
which limits us to
Within
this because
downtown.
everything else is under a PD, right? So.
well, they would get building permits, but for like the RL and RM zone districts for a period of 6 months for the purpose of establishing an overlay district, something to that effect.
Yeah, I mean, usually moratoriums have to be for, specific, temporary. I mean, obviously, it'd have to be for a temporary period of
Yeah.
time. It'd have to be for the purpose of, researching and allowing time for the town to come up with a strategy in dealing with something. You know what I mean? There's kind of like, the basic requirements. I mean, I'd have to kind of, take a look at more of the requirements, offhand, but.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, essentially that's what it'd be. It'd have to be something temporary. There'd have to be a purpose for it, which, in this case might be to kind of do further research or something along those lines
Sure.
concerning an overlay district.
I guess I was just wondering how would that affect Rogers Farm, for instance?
It would, yeah.
Right, so there's
It would-
Rogers Farm with Boulder Creek Neighborhoods, as well as the owners of the Third Avenue properties.
Well, those are already up.
Well, any place where a permit hasn't
Not on
been
Third.
pulled would be
Oh,
effective.
sorry, I was thinking the ones on Second.
Yeah.
Those new ones that are
Third in the
framed.
back.
Right.
I mean, if they were under a PD, then it wouldn't be, but they aren't. I mean, they're just wanting to build on existing flats in original town, so.
That's kind of interesting because they don't, I mean, as I understand it, the Boulder Creek neighborhoods won't be coming to the
Nope.
planning commission anyway because they're,
Right.
They're building by right.
Yeah, they're building by right. They're just pulling permits. And so that's the whole point of this is,
As with the Third Avenue properties.
Yeah. If we know a code change is imminent.
This is fairly far along in planning for what it's going to build there. I mean, they've
is
had
it,
public
give your mic on.
that they have had public meetings to sort of show what kind of properties they're going to build there and what the layout is and what the road is and all that kind of stuff.
And again, I don't know from a legal perspective, at what point the town, I mean, I feel like we probably have the ability legally, but whether it's the right thing to do based, you know, kind of from a political perspective, that's, you know, a different, I think, thing. But I don't know if there was appetite for it, if it's something that we should discuss more, or just, you know, throw it out to the board and see what they think.
I think it's worth discussing because it could be a part of the Northwest study of putting the brakes on things and then taking a hard look at it and seeing if we can put overlays on it and discuss with their attorney what we could actually do. You know,
Yeah, I feel like-
political fallout, I'm not an elected official, I'm not concerned about that.
Right.
But
Well, I mean, I brought it up a while back, but it was, I think, too soon
Yeah.
and too
Like,
early.
to the
And,
point where
and
maybe it's
yeah, and I think it would be very temporary. I mean, love to see this get completed in 3 to 6 months, right? That's our hope, the overlay district, if we can pull it off. And if Clarion's done it before, that increases the chance that we can get it done.
Plus, I think it puts some urgency on us,
Yeah.
you know, to get it done as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I
It just feels like a question we could ask to the board next week during your discussion.
Yeah. Moratorium's a scary word, but, you know,
you're pumping the brakes.
yeah, a hold on issuing building permits until the overlay district can be established. How's that? That sounds a little friendlier.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, the presentation that Boulder Creek Neighborhoods made was to the residents of Original Town over at the sports stable. So it had nothing to do with the town or anything like that.
No,
But I was there, you were there, and so was Daryl. You know, we talked a lot about the architecture that they showed us. And I remember myself and Daryl were kind of pushing the topic of, can we make it more, add some architectural details to the house that are reminiscent of Original Town miner homes, the original mining shacks that are in Original Town, the gingerbreading, the I don't know what else you call it, but just the little architectural details in the houses to add to those to make it more reminiscent of Original Town, be more respectful of Original Town.
Yeah, and Daryl's met with them at least once since then, too. Yeah, I don't know if it really changed much, but they were nice enough to reach out.
I think they hear things, they hear us.
Okay, so it sounds like we're all okay with throwing it out there and seeing if it sticks or slides off the wall. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Anything else? Any questions, comments? Steve, do you have anything else?
No.
All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
That was our quickest meeting, was it?
Pretty close.
32, 7:30.
Yeah.